Welcome back to our channel. Don't overlook these ordinary-looking pennies, they could be hiding serious value. Starting with the 1985 Lincoln penny, some rare off-center errors have shocked collectors with high prices. Next, the 1990 penny. If it's missing a mint mark, you could be holding a rare gem. And the 2005 penny? Certain die cracks and doubling make this one highly collectible too. Like this video and hit subscribe, your next lucky penny could be worth hundreds. In the quiet clink of everyday commerce, where coins slip between fingers unnoticed, there are rare moments when a simple penny defies its humble purpose and rewrites its own history. The year was 1985, a time when the American economy was bouncing back from recession, when technology buzzed with the promise of innovation, and the U.S. Mint continued its unbroken rhythm, striking billions of Lincoln cents with precise consistency. Or so it seemed. Amidst this mechanical cadence, one coin, one copper-coated zinc disc no larger than a thumbnail, slipped through the cracks of perfection. It bore no unusual shine, no dramatic defect to the untrained eye. Yet, it would come to stir an underground ripple across the numismatic world, its value multiplying not by the ounce of metal it carried, but by the weight of its anomaly. The coin was part of the regular run of Lincoln cents minted in Philadelphia and Denver. The composition had recently been altered just 2 years prior, in 1983, shifting from a 95% copper base to a copper-plated zinc core. This subtle change aimed at cost-cutting would go on to influence not just the chemistry but the error rates of these common coins. As hundreds of millions were struck, errors were statistically inevitable. But among the sea of billions, the 1985 cent quietly harbored one peculiar mistake: a misalignment, a die clash, a double die, or something else entirely. It depended on which variation found its way into a collector's hands. Some bore misaligned dies causing ghostly shadows behind Lincoln's profile. Others displayed a ghostly second date beneath the original 1985 strike, barely visible unless under magnification. A few displayed the most elusive, a dramatic off-center strike, where Lincoln's face hovered near the coin's edge, as if peering off into an unintended void. For years, these quirks went unnoticed, buried in pockets and piggy banks. But not for everyone. In the quiet suburbs of Ohio, nestled in the back of a cluttered antique shop, a longtime coin enthusiast named Harold Blake was sifting through a cigar box of forgotten change. To Harold, who had spent 4 decades collecting and cataloging coins, there was no greater thrill than the unknown, a search not for wealth, but for whispers of history stamped in metal. As he tilted a worn 1985 penny under the light, something subtle caught his eye. It wasn't the color or sheen. It was Lincoln's eye. It appeared slightly blurred, even duplicated. He frowned, fetched his loupe, and leaned in. His pulse quickened. The doubling was unmistakable. The inscription, "In God We Trust," bore faint shadows. So did the word "Liberty." It was no illusion. Harold had found something. He purchased the penny and a few others for just a few dollars, thanked the shopkeeper, and drove home in silence, the coin resting in his pocket like a ticking mystery. That night, he compared it with known varieties. The doubling was consistent with a previously undocumented die variety. It wasn't a machine doubling, the kind that results from mechanical shift. This was die doubling, the result of a misaligned die during the hubbing process. It meant that this coin, this single penny minted among millions, had been born with a ghost. Harold's hands trembled as he placed the coin into a soft holder, his breath shallow. He wasn't just holding currency. He was holding a whisper from the mint's hidden vaults, a mechanical misstep that now breathed life into a coin once dismissed as ordinary. Word of Harold's find slowly leaked into coin forums. Skepticism was swift. Many called it a trick of light, a smudge, a common double. But photos began to circulate. Experts chimed in. The pattern of doubling was too precise, too deliberate. PCGS and NGC, 2 giants in coin grading, were consulted. When Harold finally mailed the coin for authentication, the wait was excruciating. Weeks passed. Then came the call. His 1985 penny had been graded and labeled 1985 Lincoln cent, double die obverse, extremely fine 45. The designation meant everything. The error was real. The value? Still uncertain. But its status was sealed. Initially, the coin's value hovered modestly, $11.30, then $1,160, as private collectors took note. Harold declined early offers. He wasn't ready to part with it. He attended conventions, spoke at small gatherings, showing the coin like a rare photograph of a family ancestor. But the more people saw it, the more questions arose. Were there more like it? Was this a one-time mint error, or part of a series yet to be uncovered? And that's when a second coin surfaced. A collector from Arizona posted images on a coin board, another 1985 cent, this time with a partial blockage error. The front bore Lincoln's visage, but behind it, pressed faintly into the metal, was a reversed ghost of the same design, a rare imprint caused when a newly struck coin sticks to the die and imprints onto the next blank planchet. The anomalies were stacking. Collectors began hoarding 1985 pennies, examining them under lenses and microscopes. A frenzy took root. Coin shops reported shortages of 1985 cents. Dealers raised their prices on unsearched rolls. What was once a sleepy issue had suddenly become a chase that in time. Auctions began to reflect the changing tides. A third 1985 penny with dramatic off-center strike, nearly 35% off, surfaced at Heritage Auctions. It sold for $1,725. Another with a retained cud, where a piece of the die had broken and left a jagged blob above Lincoln's head, fetched $1,920. And then Harold's coin resurfaced. He had held it long enough. At an online auction, his double die cent sold for a jaw-dropping $10,850. The room fell silent when the final gavel dropped. It wasn't just about the coin. It was the story, the history, the chase. The very essence of collecting had been distilled into that single, flawed penny. Still, the story wasn't done. As more examples trickled in, another anomaly emerged, an inconsistency in weight. A few of the 1985 cents being weighed by collectors showed a mass of 3.1 grams, the weight of the older copper cents, instead of the expected 2.5 grams of the copper-plated zinc variety. Could it be? Had some 1985 cents been mistakenly struck on older copper planchets? A cross-examination of mint records revealed no such intentional production. But mistakes happen. Planchets can get mixed. Mint employees have confirmed such slip-ups over the decades. If true, it would make these heavy 1985 cents exceedingly rare. One such example, authenticated and confirmed by weight, fetched over $14,300 in a private sale in 2021. The ripple became a wave. Error collectors, once a niche circle, began branching into mainstream attention. Articles appeared in coin publications. The Secret Life of the 1985 Penny ran as a cover feature in a prominent monthly. As demand grew, values surged. A simple off-center error with 50% misalignment and full date visible broke past $12,000. Cut errors, die clashes, misstrikes, all commanded staggering premiums, and yet, amid this whirlwind of valuation and speculation, something entirely unexpected happened. A collector in Georgia submitted what appeared to be a 1985 cent with both obverse and reverse errors, a double die on the front and a rotated die on the back, where the Lincoln Memorial sat angled nearly 75 degrees from its standard orientation. This combination was exceedingly rare. But it wasn't the twist. Upon metallurgical analysis, it was revealed that the coin's core was neither zinc nor copper alone, it had a nickel alloy composition. How? No record existed of any such planchet being used in 1985 for cents. The coin was sent back to the Mint's archival department. After weeks of study, it was concluded that the planchet may have originated from a transitional testing batch, likely repurposed or misplaced from nickel production trials. In other words, this wasn't just a Mint error. It was a ghost from an experiment never meant to be public. The coin community buzzed with theories. Some whispered of a rogue employee, others of misplaced stock. But what mattered more than answers was the implication, that the 1985 cent, a coin once disregarded and unremarkable, had not one but many layers of mystery. It was a window into minting accidents, systemic oversights, and perhaps even hidden agendas buried deep in government warehouses. The coin fetched an astounding $18,200 at auction and was subsequently insured $4.15000. As the years passed, the 1985 cent transformed from a collector's curiosity into a subject of study. Books were written. Research groups formed solely to track down and analyze 1985 penny errors. Entire rolls were cracked open with the hope of unveiling a twist, be it a cud, a misstrike, or the near-mythical double die. Coin dealers began offering premiums for raw 1985 cents. Even banks began to see requests for penny boxes centered specifically around that year, and in that shifting market, values continued their unpredictable dance. A dramatic die cap error, where a coin sticks to the die and deforms like a thimble over repeated strikes, sold for $15,750. One penny, nearly blank on one side due to a rare strike-through of grease, traded hands in a quiet dealer-to-dealer exchange for just under $14,000. Every error had a story. Every story fed the frenzy. For the average person, the 1985 penny still looks like any other. It circulates. It slips beneath vending machines and hides between couch cushions. In 1990, the U.S. Mint was operating with seasoned precision. The Lincoln cent, long a staple of American currency, was still faithfully produced in copper-plated zinc, a cost-effective material shift made back in 1982. By then, the public had become accustomed to the feel, weight, and dull metallic ring of this modern penny. Billions rolled out annually from Philadelphia and Denver, bearing Abraham Lincoln's solemn profile on the obverse, and the Lincoln Memorial faithfully etched into the reverse. Each coin struck was expected to mirror the next, a perfect imprint of mechanical certainty. But nestled among these uniform masses, a handful emerged with a silent flaw, barely noticeable at first glance, but seismic in the world of numismatics. The 1991 cent coin, seemingly like all others, bore a mystery that would lie dormant until the right eyes noticed. The Philadelphia Mint struck over 6.8 billion pennies in 1990. They were expected to carry no mint mark, following standard practice, while Denver minted cents bore the D. The initials, VDB, belonging to the original designer Victor David Brenner, lay discreetly on the reverse, while Lincoln's gaze remained eternally fixed to the right. But in this vast sea of red-brown coins, something unusual began to appear: tiny, irregular gaps in the fine letters of Liberty, the faint ghost of a double-struck motto, or more curiously, an unusually weak or missing detail in areas that should have been crisp. At first, these were dismissed as circulation wear or minor production hiccups. But those who knew better began to notice a pattern. The clue, for one veteran collector named Melanie Trask, arrived through sheer routine. Melanie, a meticulous hobbyist in rural Illinois, spent weekends searching through boxes of rolled pennies purchased from her local bank. She wasn't hunting for treasure, just subtle stories told in copper tones. In one of those rolls, she found a 1990 cent that made her pause. The coin looked clean, surprisingly so. The surface was smooth, the rim well struck. But something was missing. She squinted. Where was the S? She flipped the coin again and again, disbelief washing over her. 1990, no mint mark. That was normal, for a Philadelphia coin. But the coin felt different. The details were sharper, the strike more refined. The color seemed richer. She weighed it, 2.5 grams, as expected. Still, her instinct insisted something wasn't right. She sent the coin for grading and sat in anxious silence, the coin sealed in a padded envelope and entrusted to the U.S. postal system like a secret message. When the report came back, her suspicion was confirmed, but not in the way she expected. The coin had been struck at the San Francisco Mint. It should have borne an S mint mark. But it didn't. Somehow, her coin was a San Francisco proof penny, meant for collectors, struck with mirror-like fields and sharp relief, yet it lacked the very mark that proved its origin. In technical terms, it was a 1990 S proof cent with a missing S mint mark. And that was no minor detail. It was one of the rarest Lincoln cent varieties of the modern ERA.AS word spread. The numismatic world began to shift focus. Proof coins are struck differently, double-struck under higher pressure using specially prepared dies, and sold to collectors in sets. For one to escape its packaging, make its way into circulation, and do so without its identifying mint mark? That was more than an error, it was a monumental mishap. Only a small handful of these had ever been found. Suddenly, the 1990 penny wasn't just another coin, it was a legend in the making. In 1993, a verified example of this missing variety stunned collectors when it sold at auction for over $20,000. As more were discovered, though still very few, prices began to climb. By 2006, a pristine, certified version sold for just over $40,000. And by 2019, a gem-quality example changed hands for $108,000. The coin had gone from overlooked anomaly to a crown jewel in any Lincoln collection. Not for its metal. Not even for its age. But for the mystery born of its absence, for the mark that should have been there, and wasn't, and that wasn't the only version of the 1990 penny to gain notoriety. As collectors became obsessed with 1990s era varieties, new finds began to surface. One roll hunter in Oregon reported a 1990 D cent with a dramatic off-center strike. Nearly 65% of the design was missing, with Lincoln's face hovering at the rim's edge like a surreal portrait. That coin sold for nearly $11,200. Another collector unearthed a 1990 cent with a clear die clash, a ghostly outline of the memorial pressed into the obverse side, overlapping Lincoln's cheek. Yet another revealed a retained interior cud, where the upper rim swelled with an unusual bulge, creating a partial blockage of the date. That coin fetched $10900. But the most bizarre twist came from a retired machinist in New Mexico, who submitted a 1990 cent that seemed to shimmer strangely. Under magnification, the edges revealed a double rim, unusual for such a modern cent. Further metallurgical tests uncovered a surprise: the coin had been struck on a dime planchet. It was underweight and slightly smaller than standard, but the full cent design was visible, albeit slightly distorted. The anomaly made sense only in one scenario: a rare coin struck on the wrong blank. These planchet errors, especially from post-1982, were exceedingly rare. The coin later sold for over $16,000. What made the 1990 penny so unique wasn't just the variety of errors, but how each one told a story of precision gone slightly awry in a year that should have produced perfect clones. As more examples surfaced, off-center strikes, die cracks, missing elements, a pattern began to emerge. The 1990 cent wasn't the result of one catastrophic minting day, but a year where small imperfections multiplied quietly behind the scenes. For collectors, this made the year magnetic. Each new coin examined became a potential treasure hunt. Even the standard issue 1990 cent, Philadelphia and Denver, saw increased interest. Coin roll hunters began hoarding unsearched 1990 rolls, betting on the slimmest chance of finding a missing mint mark proof or a major off-strike. Coin shows began including dedicated displays titled "The Secrets of 1990, showcasing side-by-side comparisons of double dies, rotated strikes, and proof anomalies, but it all came back to the one that started it, the missing S. It was unlike any modern cent. No wear and tear, no visual trick. Just absence. Silent, unassuming, and powerful. And as the years passed, even fewer examples remained in the wild. Those that had been discovered were scooped into private collections, insured and protected, rarely seen outside glass cases. The value didn't just rest in its market price, it rested in its exclusivity. Then came the unexpected twist. In 2023, a small estate sale in Michigan drew modest local attention. Among the usual antiques and heirlooms, a man purchased a sealed U.S. mint-proof set from 1990, still in its original packaging. When he opened the case later at home, he noticed something strange. The penny looked like any proof coin, mirror finish, sharp strike, but it didn't have a mint mark. Assuming it was a fake, he posted a photo to an online coin forum. Within hours, experts descended. The coin was real. It was a genuine missing S from a sealed, original government-proof set. What followed was chaos. Collectors argued whether the packaging had been tampered with. But further evidence suggested otherwise. this was a set that had never been opened. The discovery proved something haunting. These error coins may have been distributed directly by the mint, completely unknown to them at the time. It reignited debate. How many more might exist? How many remain sealed, forgotten in attics, mistaken for ordinary sets? Within months, auctions for sealed 1990 proof sets doubled in price. Dealers began offering premiums just to inspect unopened boxes. And in the process, a new generation of collectors emerged, those drawn not to gold or silver, but to copper-plated zinc, to the penny that fooled the system and etched itself into modern coin lore. The 1991 cent coin, through error and accident, mystery and omission, had become more than small change. It had become a legend. In 2005, the United States Mint was in full stride, churning out coins for a country riding the momentum of economic growth and digital expansion. The Lincoln cent, which had already spent nearly a century in Americans' pockets, remained unchanged in its design. Lincoln's familiar profile still faced right, the Lincoln Memorial still sat staunchly centered on the reverse, and the copper-plated zinc composition, introduced in 1982, had become the standard for more than 2 decades. There was nothing extraordinary about the penny's purpose or its place in the nation's currency. It was a workhorse, cheap to make, cheaper to spend, and largely ignored by most. Yet, in this year of seemingly flawless production, a quiet mistake slipped through. And that mistake would turn one of the most common coins into one of the most coveted. Across Philadelphia and Denver, over 7.7 billion 1-cent coins were struck in 2005. That meant billions of identical coins, indistinguishable to the casual eye, bearing no promise of rarity. But amidst the sea of red-brown surfaces, a few outliers began to emerge. It didn't start with a bang. There were no media announcements, no news flashes. It began in small forums, whispers in hobbyist circles. Quiet curiosity passed between collectors who noticed that a handful of 2005 Lincoln cents looked odd. Not damaged. Not worn. Just wrong enough to be interesting. The first hints came from a collector in Fresno, California, who found something curious while sorting through loose change from a gas station. The penny's color caught his eye, not the dull red of circulation, but a brilliant copper tone more common in freshly minted coins. Yet the coin wasn't mint fresh. The rim looked uneven. And when he turned it, he saw something unmistakably strange. The Lincoln Memorial was rotated, clocked a full 90 degrees to the right. Not scratched. Not altered. Rotated. He posted his find to an online numismatic group. Dozens of responses poured in. Most thought it was a hoax. But some saw the alignment, the sharpness of the strike, and knew it wasn't a simple case of coin manipulation. It was a mint error, a rotated die strike, where the obverse and reverse dies were improperly aligned during production, causing the reverse design to twist against the standard orientation. For a coin minted in the billions, any deviation from perfection meant one thing: someone, somewhere, had missed something important. And in the world of error coins, such oversights are gold. As more examples began to surface, different types of errors on 2005 pennies joined the conversation. Some showed raised, jagged lumps of metal, cuds, where part of the die had broken and transferred an ugly bubble onto the coin's rim. Others showed faint, ghostly images behind Lincoln's head, results of die clashes, where the obverse and reverse dies had slammed together with no planchet between them, leaving phantom impressions. A few were even more unusual: double-struck coins with visible design overlaps, off-center strikes that left large blank crescents on one side, and capped die errors that resulted in distorted, domed faces. Each one was a rarity, an outlier, a mistake too valuable to discard. Then came the turning point. A coin dealer in Michigan, known for his meticulous cataloging of modern errors, unveiled a coin he had been quietly holding for over a year. It was a 2005 Lincoln cent, struck on a dime planchet. The coin was visibly smaller, weighing in at just over 2.2 grams. The details were all there: Lincoln's bust, the date, the inscriptions, but portions of the design were cut off due to the smaller blank. Even more fascinating, the reverse Lincoln Memorial was partially struck off the edge. It was, by all definitions, a wrong planchet error, one of the rarest and most prized in modern coinage. The coin, authenticated by a top-tier grading service and encapsulated with the note, struck on 10C planchet, was offered at auction with cautious anticipation. Experts speculated it might fetch a few $1,000s, maybe more if competitive bidding took hold. When the hammer dropped, the final sale price stunned even seasoned collectors. The coin sold for $32,000. It wasn't just a fluke, it was a wake-up call. Error coins from 2005 weren't just anomalies. They were investments. Suddenly, every detail of the 2005 Lincoln cent was under scrutiny. Coin shows began to feature modern error sections. Collectors revisited their old rolls. Dealers re-examined bulk bags long left untouched. And the market responded. Another 2005 cent with a dramatic off-center strike, nearly 75% of the coin's obverse missing, with the full date and part of Lincoln's face just barely preserved, sold for $11,600. A double-struck coin with overlapping designs? $14,000. And then a die cap error, where the planchet adhered to the die and formed a thimble-shaped imprint, made headlines when it sold $4,47,000. But the most extraordinary sale was yet to come. A private collector, known only by the initials, JM, surfaced with what experts later called the cleanest and most dramatic multi-error 2005 cent ever recorded. The coin featured a perfect storm, struck on a foreign planchet, double-struck with visible rotation, and bearing a major die crack that bisected the coin from rim to rim. It was an error stacked upon an error, a Frankenstein of mint missteps. The provenance was confirmed, and the coin passed authentication with ease. The sale? A staggering $90,000, an amount that placed the 2005 cent among the most valuable modern Lincoln errors ever recorded. This wasn't an isolated trend. The value of 2005 Lincoln error pennies now floats in the market anywhere between $32,000 to $90,000, depending on the error's type, visibility, and condition. What began as an overlooked year, swallowed in the routine of billions, had become a minefield of opportunity for sharp-eyed collectors. The mistake that made these coins special wasn't in their composition or design, it was in the brief, almost imperceptible lapses in the minting process. Those fleeting mistakes transformed a coin worth 1 cent into a numismatic prize worth tens of thousands, and yet, the most fascinating part wasn't the money, it was the mystery. Because even now, the full scope of the 2005 pennies errors remains unknown. New types continue to appear. A collector in Kansas recently discovered what may be the first verified mule error involving a 2005 cent, where two mismatched dies struck opposite sides of the coin. Though still under review, if authenticated, its value could eclipse even the $90,000 high watermark. The deeper question that follows is simple: how many more are out there? Boxes of unsearched 2005 pennies still exist in bank vaults, basements, and forgotten coin jars. Every so often, a penny turns up in pocket change that feels a bit too shiny, a bit too off-centered, or a bit too perfect in its imperfection. Collectors and dealers alike remain alert, scanning each Lincoln face not for what's present, but for what might be missing: an outline, a rim, a letter, or an alignment just 1 degree off from perfect. The 2005 Lincoln cent, once an unremarkable part of America's daily currency, has earned its place in the spotlight not by design, but by deviation. Its flaws, born of timing and machinery and overlooked moments in a busy minting year, now define its worth. And for those patient enough to look, to examine, to believe that even a penny can hold secrets, those quiet mistakes still wait in rolls, drawers, and jars across the country, waiting to be discovered, waiting to astonish.